Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us and thank you for your patience with us tonight. I've been navigating some technical difficulties like time zones and computers, and here we are, but we made it. So, for those of you watching live, I thank you for your patience and thank you for being here with us tonight. I'm so excited. My name is Susie Q. Smith, and I work with The Word. We're a nonprofit organization who's fighting for inclusivity in literature. We're trying to build a publishing community that's going to fight for us and include us. Our mission is to promote voices from underserved communities and diverse backgrounds, to honor the stories of those who have faced adversity and injustice, and to provide a sanctuary space where these groups will see themselves in the future. My role with The Word is to plan the Margins Conference, which I'll tell you all about later. But right now, I really want to dive into this conversation because I'm so excited to hear from these poets. So tonight, we are really excited to welcome our guests, Ashia, Ajani, and Janae Johnson. And we're going to reverse the order. So tonight, Janae Johnson will be reading first, followed by Ashia Ajani. Each of our guests will offer a reading of their work, followed by a brief discussion as poetry for a tool of connection, community impact, wellness, and all of the things that poetry can bring. So we'll be dropping links in the chat for their books, their websites, their social media. I've also emailed that to you if you're watching live, but I'll put them in here for those of you who are going to tune in later. And so be sure to get those links and support these poets. So today we're going to hear first from poet Janae Johnson. Janae Johnson is an award winning poet, performer, educator, curator, and DJ with a collection of work that celebrates Black queer masculinity, kinship, and belonging. She is a National Poetry Slam champion, Women of the World Poetry Slam champion, and a founder of two nationally recognized poetry venues, the Root Slam from Oakland, California, and the House Slam in Boston, Massachusetts. Her work has been featured in multiple outlets such as PBS, NewsHour, and ESPN. Janae currently resides in Tacoma, Washington. And before I bring Janae on, I also want to just say that one time Janae Johnson saved my personal life with like the perfectly timed Wu Tang verse. So welcome, Janae. Thank you so much for being here.
What's going on, Susie? You meant to go into the Wu-Tang verse? We good now. We gonna do this? I bomb atomically,
I mean,
Socrates philosophies and
and
hypotheses. What? All
hypotheses.
right, come on.
Okay. I'm so happy to see you. And thank
Yeah.
you for reading some poems for us tonight.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Susie. I appreciate it. I hope everyone is having a wonderful afternoon, evening. I don't know your life. I don't know where you are, but thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing and open to listening to my work. I'm going to read a few poems. The first poem that I am reading actually from my collection called Lessons on Being Tenderheaded. It came out in April. Um, yeah, the first poem that I am reading is called Reckless Brandon. Brandon asks if I want to be a boy. Lord, no. Often, yes. A fourth grade splinter of a daydream premieres his corkscrew coiled scalp turned gel slick. Yes, Lord. Like a black Richie Rich impersonator. Like I'm Taylor suit and snark only. So yes, perhaps I wonder boy things, Brandon. While staining my sheets vengeance red, Brandon. Yes, perhaps girl is too pretty of a word to call myself. I mean, I deserve pretty things, but mostly money. Run it. Question: are you a girl if there is no woman you wish to become? Brandon asks if I want to be a boy. Lord, yes. Often, no. Standing to pee is so reckless. It should be illegal in California at the very least, but still, there is serenity that only exists within my mother's perfumes when she is not home. So, yes, perhaps I wonder girl things too, Brandon. While grabbing my jeans where a crotch could have been, Brandon, yes, perhaps boy is too ugly of a word to call myself. I mean, I deserve ugly things, but mostly love. Run it. Question: are you a boy if there is no man you wish to respect? So that was the first piece. Um, there's a lot of basketball poems in the book itself, and so I'm going to read a quick basketball poem called "Ankle Weights," um, and we'll go from there. The book itself is kind of like a coming of age. When I find I should have marked it, but we're gonna talk instead. Um, the book is a coming of age kind of story in general, and so it kind of tracks when I was younger to a few years ago. And yeah, this poem is I'm not an athlete anymore. I cannot claim that title, but I used to be an athlete. I played basketball for a lot of my life, and I played in college. I played since I was like 4 years old to when I was 22 years old. So a long time. So anyway, this next poem is called Ankle Waist. Jump like no bone could ever scatter to dust or grieve in silence, like your knees could survive the soft heat of a ratchet bullet. See how fear and gravity eat at the same table. There was no such thing as prayer until we imagined we could touch the sky. To shed your blues, you gotta wear sorrow like a wool scarf, so start with 2 pounds, then 5, then 10, then none, then see how your legs no longer feel like somebody owns them, like a thicket of autumn air, like a shackle too stubborn to latch the ankle, you too slippery to hold, you heavy-headed crown pose enamored by this new shadow when niggas jump. You finally enunciate each syllable around their name. When niggas jump, you mistake them as gods in a moonlit park. They say if you choose all this weight, you might break something. You might strain a tendon. You might snap your confidence in half for a spell. If you choose to soar wingless, you may scratch your cheek on this good earth when you land. Or you just might learn what's capable of catching you. There's this poet named Ernest Gibson III, and I looked up to him when I was a baby slam poet, and he came out with a piece called "Hold Me" in it's like 2010 ish, and he's phenomenal. He's just a phenomenal writer, but he no longer performs a piece. Couldn't find it anywhere. Um, and so this next poem is after him. I couldn't have written it if he did not write it first. And he's a brilliant writer. And I was just trying to like keep up with how he explores language and also just like his imagery through like kind of religion in some ways. But anyway, his piece was about how to hold a black boy and specifically um, a gay black boy. And so this piece is how to hold a black girl. Um, if you hold me, let it be like God holds the world. Let your cheekbones graze the soil of my chest and slowly glide your palms around my waist. Press your fingertips into each splinter of skin and trust that neither of us will bleed tonight. Trust me when I tell you, this is how you hold me. Have you ever listened to the heaving chest of a black girl? It sounds like the rattle of a sunken treasure chest. There's something holy about learning to swim simply for the sake of discovery. You will find that nothing is extinct, that blood is eternal when it surrenders to the tides, and gold is the least of her worth. Have you ever felt her skin, selfless as a Sunday sunrise, her bones melting into her ribcage like lava returning to the earth's nest? Uneven spine and bursting belly splitting the same heartbeat you will hear languages she was never taught to speak or speak up to. She's pained, sure, but that's not your job to undo. Follow her breath like the first flicker of light. Don't assume any part of her has walked your earth before. Listen, if there is ever a time to underestimate your strength, it is when you decide to hold me. Have you ever lost yourself in the heaven of a black girl's eyes? It's like watching an army of gods trying to carve a sunset, ducking under castles of clouds who pray to the same shades of orange or blue or red. Have you ever kissed the bare back of a black girl? It's like sucking sugar out of a honey jar. Your lips are tickled, sweet. Shoulders sprout like wings so celestial the act feels senseless, like gravity trying to teach itself to stay still. Have you ever felt her rage like a pendulum, injecting her forearm breath, coloring a charcoal sky, but that quickened thunderstorm that you've seen, that mayhem, that red eye temper that was never inside of her? Can you not feel this now? Because when you hold her, she is closed eyed brightness. She is underground parachute. She is blanket warm cotton underneath a somersault, even when the spit of a man's fear becomes her lotion. Even when his cold snarl turns magician, insecurities reappear as brass knuckled alleys. You know now that this rage, this black rage, it was never inside of her. It was just the world trying to become her. And I swear, there is something too patient about the moon. And I never understood why we choose to sleep when there was so much darkness to consume. So fuel me in my unrest tonight and hold me tight and willingly, like God held the world, like the rainfall held the gossip of heaven, like the first time you held your laughter, both hands locking your lips and your lungs pulsing its rupture. Listen, if there is ever a time to listen to a black girl, it's when she tells you exactly how she needs to be held, how to follow every wound of flesh, how to spin your palm lines underneath her scarred chin and just stay. Like there could be no light replaced by your eyes. Stay. And this is how you hold me. Have you ever held black brilliance, light, and, and, and thank you. Um, I think I have one more piece, and I think I'm going to be playful a little bit with the last piece. I don't usually do this one on the internet um, because it's so performative. I'm going to make it less performative because I don't want to seem ridiculous um, in general on camera. I could be ridiculous on stage, but when I'm on camera, look. So thank you for having me. I cannot wait to engage in conversation and hear more poetry. Um, so this piece is called Pose. Yeah, and it's like a more rhythmic piece. Um, so yeah, one thing that I'll say before the piece, I'm not going to give any disclaimers, but it's I think I grew up um, really really struggling with my with how I wanted to be and present in the world. So I guess this is about that. Um, so it goes, Miss Peggy. She spit her baby hair back, held back, split tongue, black eyes, rolled sky eye, pause, spine stiff. She sniffs, no air, just shade. Tells me hat off. I say, okay, okay. She say, why you looking like you rob a bank, huh? All gawk, inhale, like girl, what's your bra size? I say, XL. Growth spurt, flirt posture, upright imposter, skin tight, don't fit, skin might fly like popped grease, popped neck, sit still, girl, check that fat, thick lip, puff and put some pearls round your neck. Ooh, get 'em. If you got the knees, bend 'em, go ahead, party, hop this city. You've been pretty since 1920. Stroll like a bass drum, kicked back, white, blue, kick back, pristine syntax. Roll up to the banquet, blouse, shirt, nurse skirt, pantyhose, all holes, holy shackle, sweet tabernacle. Why you wear foundation if you don't know how to do it? Why you got that booty if you don't know how to use it, you be sitting there. like you got some lava in your cup, girl. We be face down, ass up. That's the way we like to. And girl, you look so cute back when your mama picked your clothes. I said I didn't ask no questions. I just held my head in post. They told me, girl, you look so cute back when your mama picked your clothes. I said I didn't ask no questions. I just held my head in. Thank y'all for having me. Cannot wait to engage in discussion. Sue's cute. Sue's cute.
Janae Johnson, you just took my breath away with that, with all
Oh,
of those poems. And
yes.
also, like, I want to hear that over an instrumental. I feel like that's when we can throw our hands up to and also cry, which I feel like you have a pretty unique ability to do to make us do at
Huh.
the exact same time. So I want to thank you for your poems.
I'm
And
adding that to my bio. I appreciate that, Susie.
thank you. And I can't wait to talk more about these poems and this new collection. The link, everyone, is in the chat. So go ahead and cop Lessons on Being Tender-Headed. And also follow Janae on the social media. Check out the website. The website is fly. I was looking at it earlier. It's a good website. And now it is my honor to introduce to you Ashia Ajani, who has been taking my breath away since they were a teenager and now they're full grown. Ashia Ajani is a Black storyteller and educator hailing from Denver, Colorado, Queen City of the Plains, unceded territory of the Cheyenne and Arapaho peoples. Their work explores Black diasporic environmental stewardship, harm, and placemaking. Ajani's words have been featured in Sierra Magazine, World Literature Today, Them, and Atmos Magazine, among others. Their poetry debut, Heirloom, is forthcoming spring 2023 with Right Bloody Publishing. Ashia is a 2022 Just Buffalo Literary Center Poetry Fellow and co poetry editor of the Hopper Literary Magazine. They can be found grass side sharing a cup of coffee with the sun. You can check out more of Ajani's writings on social media at Ashia in Bloom and at AshiaAjani.com. I will post those links for you in the comments. But right now, let's meet Ashia. How are you feeling?
Hi, I'm feeling good. Oh my goodness, it was such a blessing to hear Janae's work, and I'm so excited to be in this space with you and her. So thank you for
I'm so
having me.
excited. I can't wait to hear your poems. Y'all are label mates now, basically, right? That's how I look
Mhm.
at books. So I can't wait to hear the conversation between these poems.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some poems, y'all. Yeah, as Susie said, I really write, like from an environmental educator perspective. So that's what really grounds my work. So a lot of these poems that I'm gonna read deal with various environmental engagements and themes. And yeah, I thank you for coming. Hope you enjoy. This one is called Landfill. In the morning, the ghosts are listless. The world goes quiet without preamble. Pray to all the gods who look like me and to the ones who don't. Even the faceless deities have a place here. Grocery bags fossilized into quilt, cough drop wrappers, a tooth, all organs built of silicone and rupture. A menstrual cup, pretend to use for 3 years prior, croons its tongueless lullaby alongside saran wrap stained auburn with turmeric and grease, carved out belly fat, neon razors, bloody underwear, a pinch of his pubic hair. Acrylic nails compete with bits of skin and cartilage. How do you save smoke? Testament to ancestors worn and discarded like scraps of cloth. Headless baby doll and 12 used condoms, broken brassieres that remind me of my ex-girlfriend. God knows how many broken combs, brushes, picks pluck permanence in this brown-green slime. Prescription pill bottles my mother says not to dispose of in this way. Nothing dies here. That is the purpose of stuffing a landscape full of rubbish. Objects are only relevant in terms of their circulation. Everything has an origin, and maybe that doesn't mean as much as we would like it to mean. Bear witness to the eternal decay. Thank you. So this next one is called A Black Hair Study in Commensalism, i.e. Grease and Glory in the Marshland of My Scalp. Sit still. Knees dig into small shoulders, seating me steady, as my grandmother's raisin fingers grease the chitlin circuit of my scalp. singing soft bayou hymns. All of you is safe here. If I could maroon into the forest of my hair, I would. No questions asked, no notebooks left behind, unspoiled. Restore me back better. Filled my knocked around head with box braids reminiscent of Mississippi cypress against a swamp of salty skin. This overgrown railroad of twist and coil rejects the dirty promise of industry, the dust and rust honeyed into fertilizer, where an insurgent bloom can emerge, evergreen. Here, there is no clank of metal, no concrete coffins covering my most authentic kinky curl iterations as memory begs my safe return. Any shoreline edge erosion is my responsibility and mine alone. The fuzz of new growth, a marvel, marking tendrils territory for dispersal, and comes with the wind, rush. The naps at my kitchen signal season for an emergent abundance, untamed. Kanekalon bundles irritate me into length retention. This is the veneration we make to protect our best selves and let our treetops seduce success under the golden sun. So this next one is a little different. I feel like the first few are kind of like more kind of like land themed, and this one definitely has more water influence in it too, and it's called Durag. Forward moving, we always turn back time. Like ocean, built of body, memory, the god of good grease paints follicles holy, and those waves, Lord, those ancient waves, facilitate a brother's boldest baptism, wipe me down, a litany of all the good that came to stay. The Atlantic remembers every part of Black anatomy, like a curse, a calling. Those cold waters shift and stagnate under a cotton polyester blend. They never got to lay claim to the water, but by God, how they dammed, privatized, seized, overfished, extracted, deregulated, poisoned, commodified, pulled the cloth from the crease quick like a run in a stocking, ripped the color clean from scalp. An instantaneous divide reminds what can be taken and what can be absolved. Later, a Black boy will fit his mouth around the word rage, hold it behind his tongue, ferment his brooding into savage. Watch him pull bones from the riverbed, casting wide mesh drenched in cotton coagulations. Pray for summer rain to rinse all these trifling transgressions clean. Any flood breaks a bullet's back but does not siphon the blood back into body. Baby, I can't help but enshrine you as a vengeful sea god, drowning in all that drip, all that wet, all that sheen. So this next poem I wrote at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was inspired by a Black proverb that some of us in the audience might be familiar with, might be new to some folks. And it's called, oh my goodness, let me find it. I thought it was in this document, but it's not. And the Black proverb is, when white folks catch a cold, Black folks catch pneumonia. No incense, no brow-beaten psalm, no sweat rice, no 2 for $15 church pie, no ofrenda, no chicken feet, head, thigh, or neck, no molten mural, no sacrifice, no minstrel blood, no honey jar, no road opener, no pastor's pulpit, no garlic cloves, no force against me yet suddenly prosperous, no holy water, no voracious devotion, no dirty wine, hip twist or twerk, no 5 on it, no black-eyed peas in the evening time, no backyard switch, no soup or sin can burn out this stink. Call our demise a collateral baptism. These days, I pay good money for breath with no return on investment. So I got 2 more for y'all. As stated, I am from Denver, Colorado, born and raised. That is, no matter where I live, Denver, a piece of Denver lives in me, and I think a lot about Denver. And this one is a little bit of a tongue twister, so I hope I don't trip over my tongue as I'm saying it. But it's called a plosive for Denver, and a plosive is you take the same letter and try to make a phrase or a sentence or like a repetition of every word in that sentence, starting with that letter. Queen city of the plains, for in you we live and are loved. Denver, my devil dear, didn't you defeat yourself from jump? Didn't you define yourself from get? Dios mío, damned by definition, deliciously divine, done tempted me to stay, dry Dixieland. Darling Denver, didn't you debut dutifully? Deep Durazno summertime skies, dandelion debauchery dominated by delight. Denver, you are a desperate decomposer. Didn't you warn me of my own deflowering? Diminishing daydreams, dour drought, a damaging city's deception persists. The OGs watched your Domingo deliverance, doping your devotees through deceitful decolonization. Demented dualities dish daggers in the name of development. Yet still so dynamic and dreamy, delinquents dangle from your dreads, disastrous in your delectability. Denver, I dance with you at a distance. Displacers, disturbed deities, create dents in your dirty, dim dusk. So drunk you are in your delusion, dog. Denver wears a dashiki to a jazz festival, calls herself dapper. Discordant chords strike through pipe dreams. Denver Dayflower, don't write me off as dead weight. I wiped my shoes on your dank doormat. Your decay stuck to my digits. Deracinated by damnable design, dear Denver, don't disregard my diatribes. It's my duty to disparage your disappearing act. Your dispossessed have come to collect their debt. Whew, that one's a hard one to say. So this last one is a little bit longer and really is kind of like the summation of all of my thoughts around Great Migration, sacrifices that Black folks have had to make in order to provide for their families, the overlap between environmental injustice and health disparities. I am a product of the Great Migration. My folks moved from Mississippi to Detroit and worked in the factories. And, you know, going from sharecropping to working in an industrialized city is a really, it's a massive shift that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about and don't talk about the after effects and the legacies of that migration. So this poem is called Life Cycle. Thank you all for rocking with me tonight. And I'm really looking forward to the discussion after. America is a factory. My father builds security cameras from discarded junk phones. Their cracked screens, a subterranean stained glass, burgeoning blessings. Come one, come all if you dare. He welds a fine line between surveillance and security. My father is no stranger to a gun. My father believes in a self-proclaimed rapture. The hills have eyes. My father's lenses thicken as his vision defers. At the end of the world, he hopes to patent his despair. America is a landfill. Underwater, bloodline brined, it's soured. My neighbor pours the leftover liquid from a pot of greens into his garden. Billowing green stink arises, stains room for ripening. Black folks despise waste. The last drops of crown peach in the dog's water bowl for taste. The plastic bags under my auntie's kitchen cabinet, exceptional cushioning for our endangered shadows. Never afforded the softness of packing peanuts. Is the soul biodegradable? Can it be upcycled? At least we still have Granny's house. Wrap your apparitions in polyester coves, send them out to ocean. May they forever exist in sedimentary purgatory, floating on. In this sense, we never rest. In this sense, pollution profits. Won't these white folks come and pick up the damn trash? America is a false idol, all my people iconoclasts. Look out the window at all of that. Goddamn, what is he protecting? Ain't nothing here ours but scraps of metal. Melted all down, why don't you? Some homes are worth less than their copper pipes. This metallic stew pot boiling over. My ancestors bartered their gold teeth for green, earned heart disease and curdled cream dreams instead as the planet warms another degree. Mama says my degree won't save me. Suppose cash really does rule everything around me. I wonder what rich bones can broth a new vanguard. Nigga, can I please get a witness? America is a malignant tumor. Oh, how I long to capitalize this intrusion in our collective heartbeat, beating away at the floorboards of good sense until the spirits rattle round, pushing debilitating daisies, memory stinging nettle unsilenced. Watch the good earth reclaim clunkers for cash. Nostalgia makes a mockery of present. The open face soars on my uncle's knuckles, a tribute to this nation's success. I won't bullshit you. He reeks of burnt sienna and ember. It all reeks of pirated pyrite, fool's gold. I talk too much about my grandmother's hands because they threshed this country. Great migration granny, built Ford tough, a gorgeous ghost gnarled into graphics. Look closely. You can see flakes of calluses soldered to your car's lithium battery. I talk too much about my grandmother's hands because they become cracked by bleach, ammonia, everything meant to whiten and purge bacteria. She passed down her genealogy of anguish, lead heart and blood, black lung coughing up embattled blues. Wasn't the Tin Man once chopping through scorched earth? My gut is filled with vengeful microorganisms. Today and every day beyond grief, I throw my grease against any surface in need of shine. America, define yourself a country exactly. My offering, a knotted bellyache of sadness born beyond a destined horizon manifested. The embers of our lost selves tumbling across the west coast. Even the mountains seem to collapse with sadness. The spine of the uninherited earth curved like that of a funeral wailer. An assembly line aggravating access. All that rust corroding our good sense. Riddle me this. How can I be well when my lawn is always burning? Thank you so much. It's my last poem.
Ashia, that set was absolutely beautiful and crushing. And I can't wait to read this book so I can spend some more time with these lines. So thank you. Thank you for sharing them with us and also for making me cry tonight. So we're just in it, you know? That's all right. I'm a crier. It's fine.
Yeah.
I feel like in these times, don't we all cry more? I mean, have you cried on the internet yet? On live? Yeah, yeah. I feel like it's a normal practice for me now. I'm just like, oh, is this happening? Yeah, it's happening. I've given now. It's a practice. It's a ritual. But thank you so much. I'm going to change the way that this screen looks because, oh no, we're going to keep doing this. That's maybe a little bit better. I'd like to make me small and y'all big, but it's fine. We're going to do this because I have so many questions for both of you. Um, your readings tonight were so curated, and it felt like there was this relationship between the poems. I want to know if you'll tell me a little bit more of the story of like how your collections came together. Like when do you know that like you don't just have a group of poems, that you have a group of poems that go in a book together? Like how do you decide those things? How do you feel those things? I think it's hard to know what a book is about until you're writing it, and poetry has its own process. Who wants? I'm gonna ask Janae to start. I'm gonna ask you to you'll answer first.
Or yeah, I could answer first. I think that for my first collection, I feel like it's been traditional that I've seen that people are like, oh, these are a bunch of poems that I've written over the years. But that was not the case for me, and I didn't want that to be the case. I think I revolved the book around a set. So I did a feature set that I was like, I'm going to make this set for, I was opening for somebody, and I was like, I don't want to embarrass myself. So I'm going to make this brand new set of poems, and I based it off of that. And I feel like I cheat because I usually have a lot of the same themes in general. And since I started doing poetry and performing poetry and taking it seriously, I think I'm just trying to get better and better at telling the same story that I started off with. The story that I was like, I wish somebody would like understand this about me. And I think I'm getting better at it, but I think that's the way that I approach the poetry is just kind of like through a storytelling lens. But also just like I'm still writing about being black and queer, like almost every single poem. So I think that yeah, I knew that the collection was, I guess, quote unquote, a thing and done when it felt like there was an understanding of each age, since it was very much so like age based for me. That I was like, okay, is my like teen movement in here? is like, can people see my growth in general? And so I think, yeah, I think the beginning poem and the end poem are probably one of the last ones that I wrote in the collection. Everything in between went first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a saying. I can't remember who said it, but like poets are lucky if we have two or three things to write about, right? Like as we end up writing the same poem our entire lives, trying to get
Right.
closer and closer to that thing. So that's a very
Yeah.
very common truth for many of us. Ashia, how about you? How did you decide like this set of poems was a collection?
Yeah. It really, a lot of it hinged on the last poem that I read. I think once I had completed that, then I like was able to look back at a lot of the previous poems that I'd written and was like, oh wow, like I have a lot of feelings about being Black and loving the environment and and family history. Kind of, I mean, y'all heard it. Like it kind of all came spilling out in that last poem. And all the other poems leading up to it really were kind of like almost, I don't want to say fragments because they are, like their own pieces in their own right, but we're really kind of like this lead up, like bits and pieces that were featured in that like kind of like longer, like that, the poem that like that life cycle one is probably 3 minutes shorter than the first draft of it because it just really, it all came spilling out. And then once I had that down, I felt like I was looking at some of my older work with a different lens and realizing like, oh wow, this is really all interconnected. And then it also kind of gave the new work that I was writing after new life because I was like, okay, well, this collection is going to like hinge on the central theme of, well, we have choice, but do we really have choice? And what are like the sacrifices that we have to make in order to feel well or feel secure? And a lot of that did deeply relate to the current moment that we're in with the climate crisis, like really thinking about this like accumulation of trauma that Black folks have had with the environment, but also like all of the joy and all of the ingenuity that we have in our approach to climate and environment and nature spaces, all of the long legacies of stewardship. So I was like thinking about, I think like these really kind of abstract ideas and just wanted to put together a collection that was rooted in family and in like my own family understanding and my own family history around engagements with the environment.
Well, they were beautiful, and I think that you both bring such unique lenses too. Like there are the things that that you share in common, but also you're wildly different poets writing about wildly different things. Like like Janae, you said you write about being Black and queer. You also write about basketball. Like I know a lot of Black queer people. Most of them don't know that much about basketball. That's
It's
um
real.
over here in Denver, Colorado, where I live, and Ashia knows that as well. Like basketball, well, we can watch it, but I mean, but also like hearing that like Black environmentalism too, right? And I love that you
Right.
mentioned Ashia, like the plastic grocery bags, right? And I think every Black
Mhm.
household has the stash of them, and they get used for things, right? Yeah, like there's like many different purposes that and ways that they show up in our households and ways that they also get used. We tried to make swimsuits out of them when I was little. Is that was that
I love that idea. I totally see the thought process behind
parachutes?
it.
Wow.
Yeah, also parachutes. We did jump off the
Mhm.
steps with them, like it was a lot of things
Yeah.
trying to we did a lot. Kites, we tried to make like a lot of things. Because that ingenuity also exists, right?
Mhm.
So when I think about this though, like so I would love to know more about kind of what your writing practice looks like. Especially because you're both educators, you're both doing a million other things in addition to being poets, right? And have still managed to like create these collections and find a home for them, right? So and do all of these readings to promote them, etc. Like all of these things. I want to know like how do you do it? What's your regular writing practice look like?
She, do you want to start? You want to do this one first?
Sure. I can start. Very random, very sporadic. I used to try and be a person that was like, oh, 10 to 15 minutes a day, I'm gonna sit down at the computer, I'm gonna write. No matter what comes out, I'm just gonna write. It doesn't work like that, especially now that I'm like back in the classroom. Because virtually, I think it was a little bit easier when I was teaching to like have that kind of committed time. But now, I'm going back and forth. Like I have like other responsibilities, it's very sporadic, but really it is like a lot of it is influenced by my job as an environmental educator, you know, like the things that I witness, the things that I see. Um, a lot of it honestly is inspired by scientific articles too. Like I love reading about new science coming out, new environmental discoveries, be they good or bad. I mean, I didn't read it today, but I have a poem like The Aftermath of Sugar, which is about like this Florida high school that was named after, I can't remember the name of it, but it was named after a sugar plantation. And a factory down the road had an explosion and like it was raining ash from the sky. And I was just thinking about like, well, like what is that high school that is named after the sugar plantation doing there in the first place in the line of this fire, and like thinking about all the other like cumulative traumas that have led up to this moment. And so that's kind of like what my writing process is grounded in: a lot of reading, a lot of writing, and a lot of like kind of like scientific analysis. Because so much of what and observations, you know, just kind of around the world, because I don't even want to call it policy failure, because sometimes it feels like things are working exactly the way that they're supposed to be working. But just I guess like institutional neglect, and just like constantly seeing that and wanting to talk about it in a way that doesn't feel as overwhelming, but also is like a way that I can like express myself creatively and purge like some of the feelings that I have as an environmental educator, constantly having to digest a lot of like oftentimes really negative information.
Mm-hmm. You gotta lay it down somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, mine is also just a really random approach. I don't write every day unless I feel like I'm under a deadline, and then it's just like I'm writing every moment. But I think that I'm most inspired. I read a lot of poetry, specifically poetry books, in preparation for this book, and I also I'm very much so inspired by theater in general. And so I think I have a series of poems called My Neighbor Nash Say, and it's persona poems, but it's in the voice of a lot of Black men that I grew up with. And I remember writing the first Nash piece after watching a production of Fences. And I was just so like, I was like, I love monologues, I love theater, and so I think I get inspired by the movement first and the emotion first, and then that brings me to a story. And I've seen that happen time and time again. I'm like, oh, when I go to slams, when I see people perform, I there's something inside of me that tells a story immediately. And so I get language. I think I keep them as seeds. I keep language as seeds, and I keep stories as seeds when I'm like reading poetry. But I don't think I get that spark until I actually, have it come through my body in some way, shape, or form. So it's a strange process, but it's definitely not every day. And it's definitely, I have to, if I'm finishing a poem, I'm not just doing 10 or 15 minutes. I'm like, I'm not doing anything else. I'm not productive for the day until I finish this poem. So, yeah.
I feel like that's true for a lot of people, right? Like, I mean, we hear these stories of like people like you have to write every day if you want to be a writer, and that is just not everyone's truth. Right? It's just
Right.
not actually. And also, there are so many things. I'm very liberal in my understanding of what writing is. Right? Sometimes feeling feelings is writing. Sometimes watching TV is writing. Sometimes listening to music is writing. Going for a walk quietly is writing. It's
Yeah.
like you're all of these things you're processing, you're thinking, you're feeling. So I think but also you both spoke a lot about like being inspired, right? Like there are so many different things that inspire you that kind of like lead you to the page. Um, so on inspiration, I want to know who's your dream collaboration? If you could work with anybody at any point in time, let's just the whole landscape of time, living or not, you could work with anybody. Who would be like your dream collaborator? It could be a team. I can never pick one. Yeah. Who are some of the people who inspire you the most?
That's a hard question. I don't know why it's so hard.
If you were
It's
assembling your
a
own Wu
hard
Tang,
question. Yeah, I know, right? Uh,
who's on the squad?
I
Or who
mean, I
were some
think
people that like blew your mind when you were a kid, like that made you
Mhm.
feel like I'm a poet. This is what I want to do.
Susie Q.
I
For
know
sure,
that's right.
like seriously, the first time I saw you on stage, I
Yeah.
was like, oh my goodness, yeah, yeah, um, yeah.
We could squat up anytime.
I think that it's interesting because the first artists that I came up with were like musicians. So I was
Mhm.
like Eartha Kitt.
Mm.
Um,
Yes.
I would be like also Earth, Wind, and Fire or Stevie Wonder, someone who's like doing any type of like instruments. But yeah, I think I was thinking that. But in terms of poetry and performance, yes, definitely you, Susie. Patricia Smith, most definitely. I'm trying to think of people who like just like rocked me when I first saw them on stage, and I was like, wow, this is incredible, and I want to do that. Um, but yeah, yeah, I think my first instinct is to go with like music, because I do think a lot of like even the tone in which I use is very rhythmic, and so
Mhm.
I think I go there first.
Mhm. Well, you also do have bars, so that's the thing.
I also went straight to music. Like the first person that popped in my head was Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
My mom started me off right when I was like 2, 3 years old, dancing, listening to Stevie Wonder, and my appreciation has just grown for him as a not just as a musician, but also as a lyricist. As I've grown older, and then recently rediscovered Journey Through the Secret Life of Plants, which was just like such a cool experimental album that definitely didn't get. I would love to like collaborate with him. Stevie Wonder, if you're listening, I would love to collaborate with him on like a revamp of that project. I feel like it could be really cool. Um, Musically. And then yeah, definitely you, Susie. I remember I think I was 15. You were performing at the finals for like the quals for minor disturbance, and I just remember being like, that's who I want to be like when I get older, like because I was like listening to you and you're just speak like be able to embody and speak to so many things that my young heart was like still trying to grasp, and it was just nice to like have that representation and see like a person like you out there doing their thing. And also Alexis Pauline Gums, I love her work
Yeah.
so much. I feel like there's a lot of overlap between her work and my work in terms of environmentalism, in terms of human non-human kinships. Would love to do like a ideally in an ideal world like even like a collection of essays, because I also do nonfiction too, would be really, or lyric essays, would be really cool.
I'm very much here for this collaboration between you and Stevie Wonder and Alexis Falling Gums. And then I'm just going to slide through. I just like, I love that you both said Stevie Wonder. I was listening to Stevie Wonder just before we started tonight.
Mm.
So I feel like Stevie Wonder is somebody who can just pull you out of wherever you are and be in it. And that's one of my favorite um, excerpts on the Donny Hathaway live album, where he introduces a Stevie Wonder song that they're about to play. And he says, "From the pool of black genius, give you Stevie Wonder." It's just like
Yeah.
Yeah.
it brings me joy every time I hear it. Right. So it's just like I love these conversations in between. I want to ask you just one more question, and this again is going to be visionary because you came a long way. You've done a lot of things. You've written so many poems. You felt so many feelings. You've been on so many stages and had poems featured in a million places, and now you've got books. I want to know, what are you hoping for next? Right, like next year, 10 years. What you want to be doing?
Mm.
What's your dream life look like?
Dream life look like. I will go first. Just because I have to dip out just a couple minutes early, but I feel like I'm going towards a one person show in the next year or two. I think I'm going towards more songwriting and music production
Mm.
in general. Um, and yeah, I think whatever else comes in terms of the word or the word that's spoken comes. And I think I want to write more in song, both hip hop and like, soul. But I want to see what that looks like. I didn't start off as rhyming as a poet, and so I want to. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. So I think a lot of folks hate on like rhyming poets, but I'm just like that is not an easy thing. So I want to go back to that just to challenge myself in general. But I think I would love to be more aside from like a one person show. I would love to be more in the background in general as far as my writing goes. So yeah, I don't necessarily see a whole lot of books in the future unless I have an idea and then I just like ask people prompts. Like I had an idea of like a book called Your Mama Was Right, and then having a bunch of people tell stories about how their mama ended up being right about X, Y, and Z, and like how you should listen to Black women sometimes. But otherwise, it's just kind of like I'm just gonna let it flow, let my art flow.
Please make that book. And also, I will buy it. I will read it. I'll keep it on the coffee table. I will also come to the one person show. And I'm laughing about the rhyming because if you look for a Susie Q. Smith classic, it will have an ABCB rhyme scheme 100% of the time. If it was, if we're talking about the 1990s, that's all I could do. So I still have to break myself out of that practice sometimes because it is my natural state. Ashia, how about you? What's your dream life?
Yeah, I want a big old plot of land and some chickens. I love being surrounded by nature. I love being surrounded by green. I would love to have be a teaching artist at a residency or like have like my own like green school, like for like Black, Brown, Indigenous, Asian youth. A place, where we can be free, and learn all of the amazing gifts that this earth has to offer. Beyond that, I would love to continue writing. I do nonfiction too. I would love to do a book of essays, lyric essays, collab with some folks on an anthology. I would love to do like I think one thing that worries me a lot in terms of environmental issues is soil erosion and soil remediation. So I would love to do like something about like stories from the soil anthology, kind of inspired by that. But I know that I'm gonna be continuing teaching and writing, and also kind of getting back into my music bag. I did jazz and classical music when I was a youngster, and I want to return to that because I think that there's like a lot of cool overlaps with spoken word, blues, jazz as well. And yeah, just continue appreciating every day of life because every day is a gift. So.
Yes, this is beautiful. I can't wait to read these books. And like, yes, a whole collection on soil, right? Like I'm already excited about I'm already giving some subtitles. Look, there's so much because also I'm a Capricorn, so naturally I'm very fascinated by earth and dirt and rocks and all those things. So I'm already here for it. I'm so excited. And thank you for being here tonight. And thank you also for being part of the Margins Conference, which happens August 5th to the 7th. You can learn more at thewordfordiversity.org /margins. And Ashia will be there in conversation with KB Brookins, talking about the crisis and the beauty of trying to write about this planet we live on. So the two of them in conversation is going to be pure fire. And you can come to that's a virtual session. So the conference is both virtual and in person in Denver, Colorado. So wherever you are in the world, you can get into it. So I hope you'll join us. Tune in to the next Margins Meets, which will be in 2 weeks. I'll tell you more about it soon. So check us out online and be sure to follow Ashia at Ashia in Bloom on Twitter and Instagram at Ashia Ajani. The link is in the chat. Thank you all for being here, and thank you again, Ashia, and thank you, Janae. I know you had to scoot out, but we appreciate you so much. And thank you all, and good night.
Good night.